Do you know a mother? Hi, I am Laura Hanson Brexa. I love hearing people's stories. Welcome to Know It, Live It. Conversations with people who live passion on purpose and purpose with passion. Are stay-at-home moms better than working moms?
Motherhood is more a state of mind than it is a state of location. That just being at home is not necessarily um, what's going to contribute to successful motherhood. And I also think that when we take on the label stay at home mom, it sends these subliminal messages that we aren't allowed to leave our four walls, that we aren't allowed to have other hobbies, or that it sounds like you're talking to a dog. Stay at home, mom. So I reject that term, and I feel like the reason full-time mom is a more inviting term, and the one that I would choose for myself, is because it can include a mom who has a profession outside of her home. And that's a beautiful thing to me. I want to erase whatever dividing lines are out there and feel more unified as a motherhood in general, and not make it this categorization that tries to claim one way is more empowered or one way is more committed or anything to that effect. So let's just all be full time moms. And a mom who happens to have a profession outside the home is still the mom. So she's still a full-time mom in the sense of wondering what's going on with her kids and where are they, and making sure that she's vetted the people that she's leaving them with. Um, and and then thinking about them all day long. And I actually encourage that if she, for instance, with a new infant and her 6 weeks of maternity leave is up and she's back at work, take time, mom, to think about that baby and let yourself enjoy those thoughts, and not um get caught up in, no, I have to ignore those thoughts and I have to pay attention to my work. And no, you are still her mom. That baby is still yours no matter where you are.
Have you ever wondered what your mother felt like and what mothering was like for her? Whether she was a horrible mother, a medium type mother, or a wonderful mother? Well, we are here to talk to an advocate for motherhood and why it should be taken more seriously and not as a sideline or not as something you just fall into, or should be taken as something that is expected for women to be and disregarded. We're talking to Regan Barnes, someone I met through some volunteer work she created with other women and who she spearheads as the chair mom. Welcome, Regan Barnes.
Thank you so much. It really is fun to get to have this chance to chat with you and be on your podcast.
Thank you very much. I have some questions for you. How did you know championing motherhood was something that you wanted to live and dedicate so much time to?
Oh, it kind of started in my childhood, I think, because I would hear my mom. She was a single mom, and she would just lament the fact that she couldn't focus in on the mom thing. And I didn't really know what she meant. I was just growing up in that household and didn't realize what honored her goal when I became a mom. I remember talking to my husband and saying, my mom didn't get to be a mom, and so I'm going to do it. And he agreed to be the full time provider for the family while I focused in on our children. And then I realized I had no idea what I was doing. And that most likely I wasn't alone. Um, So many of us are being raised by single moms or by women who are working, even if they are also married, and and that if we are choosing motherhood full time, we might not be sure what we're supposed to be doing with our time with our kids, and it might we might start to resent it. We might start thinking maybe it is okay for me to pursue my own passions and just go ahead and deposit the child at the daycare. And certainly there are women who are making good use of childcare and they choose carefully who is raising their children while they are at their jobs. I am not anti daycare. I am pro motherhood and recognizing that motherhood is multifaceted and that it is worthy of our time and our talents. I think our children want to be raised by the women who love them the most. And I think every mother knows that she loves her children the best. Um, and yet we just don't always know what to do when those maternal instincts don't always turn into maternal confidence. And that can be disheartening. And that's why, as I looked around and I observed other mothers, and I didn't necessarily have a scale for what makes a good mom. I really was just looking at who seemed happy in their motherhood. And I felt like my mom had been a good mom, and yet she did have some children who struggled with drug addiction and alcoholism. And so I knew that it wasn't necessarily the outcome of the child that helped me know what kind of mom I wanted to be, but it was more internal, what kinds of emotions I wanted to feel as I raised my children. And then just recognizing that children make their own choices and that I at the same time would choose my choices of um, things like what kind of attitude I was going to bring into it. um, I felt like the first few years were frustrating, especially once the kids got old enough to need
Pardon me.
and the only discipline I seemed to have within me at that time was yelling, and that gave me a headache, and I was not happy. And so that was probably one of the first ways that I really recognized a need to upgrade my own mothering skills and find a broader variety of options that had nothing to do with the level of my voice. um, and building relationships with my children as opposed to just expecting their obedience because they feared me. so so I just saw that need and saw that I had been investing a lot of time myself into resolving issues and looking for answers and then I thought, maybe what I've learned can be helpful to other moms who, for one reason or another, are committed to motherhood and just feel like they need more tools.
You've said so many things. I like the instincts that don't necessarily translate to confidence. I think that's powerful. I want to talk about that a little bit later. I want to address stay-at-home mom versus full-time mom. I also you talked kind of around the attitude, and I believe this attitude, and I want to hear if I heard you right, that full-time moms are not necessarily better moms than those who go to work outside the home. And let's touch those three things for a bit. So mothering instincts do not convert to mothering confidence. That you use the term full-time mom and not stay-at-home mom. If I understood you correctly, that's full-time moms are not necessarily better moms than those who choose to work outside the home. Let's talk about
Yes,
those 2
thank
things.
you. I feel like all of my blabbering led to some good understandings on your part. That's good. Yes, I do see that motherhood is more a state of mind than it is a state of location. That just being at home is not necessarily um, what's going to contribute to successful motherhood. And I also think that when we take on the label stay at home mom, it sends these subliminal messages that we aren't allowed to leave our four walls, that we aren't allowed to have other hobbies, or that it sounds like you're talking to a dog. Stay at home, mom. So I do. I reject that term, and I feel like the reason full-time mom is a more inviting term, and the one that I would choose for myself is because it can include a mom who has a profession outside of her home. And that's a beautiful thing to me. I want to erase whatever dividing lines are out there and feel more unified as a motherhood in general, and not make it this categorization that tries to claim one way is more empowered or one way is more committed or anything to that effect. So let's just all be full time moms. And a mom who happens to have a profession outside the home is still the mom. So she's still a full-time mom in the sense of wondering what's going on with her kids and where are they, and making sure that she's vetted the people that she's leaving them with. And then thinking about them all day long. And I actually encourage that if she for instance, with a new infant and her 6 weeks of maternity leave is up and she's back at work, take time, mom, to think about that baby and let yourself enjoy those thoughts and not um get caught up in, no, I have to ignore those thoughts and I have to pay attention to my work. And no, you are still her mom. That baby, or his mom, right? That baby is still yours no matter where you are.
So, it sounds like intentional mothering. It's not intentional mothering. And
Right.
tell me more about instincts not necessarily being confidence. Because I am a mother, so I understand.
Yeah.
Loving your child does not necessarily come with being able to love your child
And know how to
appropriately. Yeah,
manage
yeah,
behaviors or anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
uh
tell me more about that instincts and confidence. I think that's a powerful statement.
love the child enough to work through my negativities and find and develop and progress uh, ways, methods, strategies to parent in a way that not only reveals love, but grows love. And both within my own heart towards the child, but also within that child's heart towards me, which of course you don't have control over. The child gets to choose their reactions and things, but there are influences that I can have to hopefully grow that love.
I love what you're talking about is being a mom doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a wonderful result. You're not making children into what you want them to be because they do have their own agency or their own ability to choose. And I love that because, as you said, you get to choose your own agency. Because if you depended on your children as a source of your own self esteem, and they chose to go down a route that you have told them not to go down, you would crumble. It, you would crumble. I don't know any other word to say. And if you didn't show yourself mercy as well, that would be, I don't even know the word for it. devastating.
Yeah.
You, you have to forgive yourself. You have to show yourself mercy, and you have to show your mother mercy. I believe,
Well,
truly.
and showing it to ourselves means we're also more likely to show it to our children. It's a muscle that we build, and the more we use it, the stronger that muscle is.
And we need them to show it to us. So there's a lot of talk about generational. Well, a lot of talk right now that I didn't hear growing up. I'm a little older than you, but I believe we're the same generation that I would have never said about my parents. But this next generation, there's a lot of social media and more talk about failures and mistakes and a lot about emotion. And so I want to know about what you would say to moms who feel like they haven't figured it out by now. That they're getting a lot of mothers in our generation who have older children who are feeling that backlash and think, oh, well, it's too late. My kids are already grown. What what happens to them? Can you address that?
Oh,
How does a mother
yes,
feel?
I do. I feel like you're right. There's a lot of messaging that comes that says it's not your fault, it's your parents' fault. And then the parents are hearing this and going, "Wait, what? I really did the best I could with what I had," you know? Um, and I think that we brought up the concept of mercy and grace, and that if we are willing to extend that to ourselves, then we can better extend it to our children and set the example, hoping and inviting them to show it to us as well. And I think embedded in that is the hope for positive change. And so, most likely, as that child is exploring what that means, okay, what you're going through is not your fault. It was because your parents acted in such and such a way. Hopefully, they are in the atmosphere of and so you can overcome. And so now that you've discovered the roots of the issue, then you can change and progress. And that is a message true for all of us that there is that hope to be able to change, to be able to develop and grow in ways that we want to instead of just sitting back in our mud, in our mire, and looking at people who have those skills, those capabilities, and those attributes, and just wishing that we could be among them. Instead, it's the hand up saying, come get out of that ditch of self, you know, come get out of that ditch of self
Mhm.
defeat and be willing to put the work in to leading a higher, happier life. Really, Momivate is my little nonprofit, and we do offer peer support groups. So they are not run by therapists. They are simply a chance for moms to get together. And I don't want to say commiserate because that, unfortunately, that is what we tend to do, right? When we get together, we are currently the trend is to complain. And it's funny and we feel like it's venting and yet it is doing a job on our psyche. Like we need to make the effort to bring in a different attitude. So we call our peer support groups smile gatherings and it's very intentional as far as the smile word is a acronym, an acronym. So each letter in the smile word is like giving us clues, giving us ideas of how to increase the joy that we feel as mothers. Again, independent of how our children are behaving. It's not that you can only be happy if you are figuring out how to get your kid to do what you want them to do. This is in welcoming and introducing moms to the real positive mindset types of things of so the S is for support. By all means, please seek support. Don't pretend that you don't have problems. Get help. So that's what the S is. The M is for music. We really feel like this is one of the underused tools in a mothering tool belt. There are so many ways that music can bring joy into motherhood. The I is for inspiration, and that's making a conscious effort to look around at the different things that inspire you, and that's a way to nurture your soul, and it's a way to feel encouragement and have hope. And then the L is for laughter. I personally have needed to make a conscious effort to laugh more and laugh out loud and find what's funny and laugh now. So many times you're hearing somebody's story about what happened 10 years ago that was drastic in that moment, and they're laughing now at 10 years later. But what if we can even laugh in the moment? That's just an idea of how to manage in that moment. And then the E is for empowerment. I want to give a shout out to Laura. She actually encouraged us to switch it. It used to be E for education, and instead decided to broaden it a bit and just allow for more than just what might be cataloged as education, but is broader than that. Lots of opportunity for empowerment.
Mm. What success have you seen with Momivate? What gaps has it filled?
Our most
Oh,
popular program is called our revolving closets. And this is just run by volunteers who open their home. Maybe they have a spare bedroom. In my case, I do have a revolving closet in my home, but it's in my garage. And we just welcome moms to come and deposit clothing that their children have outgrown, and then they are able to take clothing that now fits their children that other mothers donated. So it's free since we don't have overhead. There's no employees, it's just our home. So there's no brick and mortar costs. Um, and that has been a beautiful way for us to meet the tangible needs of mothers. At this point, we have 12 locations. Pretty much all of them are in Utah. We have had different locations in different areas in the past, but as far as the active ones we know about, and that's a thing about Momivate is we're happy for somebody to come to our website, get inspired by the concept, and then just go ahead and do it and not feel like they have to be connected to Momivate. And I am aware actually of one lady in Nigeria who told me that she's running a revolving closet in Nigeria.
oh, that's nice. I've thought of doing one in my area, but I moved around so much, and it wouldn't be a good idea to have one in my home. But I thought it would be cool to have a pop-up coat, revolving coat closet.
I agree. And
I think
and
that would
you
be
are
cool.
right. Take those ideas and adjust them as necessary. And we do two of those 12 that I mentioned. They do what's called pop-ups, and they will host an event about once a month at the library, and they'll
Oh,
just bring all their tubs of clothing. They've kept them organized in bins or totes, and they'll just truck them into the library and then truck out whatever's left over when the event is done, and they get really good turnouts.
yeah, nice. Even if you it's just nice. A little bit of a burden off your shoulders.
Well,
And
and we
sometimes clothes
don't.
barely get dirty before the kid is grown
Yes, in a
out of
lot of
them.
cases. I
That's also good for the environment because clothes are not getting thrown away. It can be also good for crafters because clothes can be reused for crafting. So, how has your earlier experience as a doula helped with this development of Momivate or your feelings about motherhood or anything? Tell me how you got into that and how that has helped.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, and what a doula is.
Okay. So a doula is what I call the coach to the coach of the laboring mother. So when a mom is pregnant and she's picturing what it's going to be like to give birth, and in a lot of cases she wants the father of the baby to be in the room, and not just in the room, but actively helping her. She kind of feels like this is your fault. um and so you're going to be here with me and helping me. However, that father just feels so outside of his comfort zone, and what the doula can do is, be his whisperer. She can give him the ideas and the tips and the tricks of how to be a good support to that laboring mother. So a doula does not make medicinal decisions. She's not there to decide whether this baby needs to be born by C-section, anything like that. Not at all. She's there emotionally to work through. And there are some physical. She knows certain comfort measures based on, if you squeeze the laboring mother's hips together, then that helps the pelvis rearrange the bones and let the baby through. Just, things like that that she has studied, and she's been at several births, and so she can bring that experience and that confidence, and help that husband or father of the baby be a little more useful in that situation. So, um, that's what I would say is the role of a doula. And I was just exposed to that with my first babies. That I was calling around trying to find a childbirth educator, and the one that I called introduced me to that concept of potentially having a doula at my birth. Um, and I Once the birth was done and over with and I realized that that was really helpful, I thought
Mhm.
I could do that. It does require some training, and I did actually train as a childbirth educator. Um, I just really felt like the messaging was so important. In fact, that same person who introduced me to doulas had this phrase that 90% of birth happens above the shoulders. And that
Hmm.
just gives you something to think about, right? Like, huh,
Hmm.
so there's a lot of psychological going on. And so that was definitely, and I like that you're asking how it's connected to my current mission with my nonprofit. I think that there is a connection there. That motherhood isn't just about how you give birth. Um, Motherhood extends into the eternities. Like you will always be the mother of that baby. And uh, I think that going into it with a very committed attitude is critical. Never ever giving up, no matter. I mentioned that my mom had a son go to jail, but she remained committed to him. Of course, that was hard, disappointing, right? Lost. She thought of all the lost opportunities for that boy, things like that. But she showed up. She was there,
Mhm.
visiting hours every time, and that is all she could do. She wasn't in charge of his choices and decisions, but she could say, "You are mine, no matter what." And I honestly think it had the influence on him to help him change his life. He is now a successful lawyer. So, um,
Yeah.
you never know
Never know.
what's
Yeah.
gonna happen with a kid, um, but I think that did make a difference for him.
So what is it like to run a nonprofit?
It is a lot of mechanics. Sometimes I do step back and say, am I really serving moms or am I just running a nonprofit? Like sometimes the little ins and outs and the red tape and the compliance and things like that can feel a little bit overwhelming. But I did go into it purposefully. I really
Mhm.
wanted it to be legally labeled a nonprofit so that moms weren't worried about my motives, that moms
Oh,
could
mhm,
come to me, to my organization, to
mhm,
the nonprofit,
mhm.
not worrying that this is just about getting into their wallets
Yeah,
and
gotcha.
fattening my wallet, right? So
It's gonna be led page by page, and then boom, they're gonna be charged something at the end.
right,
I've seen those
right.
promises and promises, and then they zap you. Yeah.
Exactly. I also recognize that moms do so much. Moms are constant givers. They are giving their love, they're giving their sanity, they are giving birth. That I don't feel like they need to give money. I feel like the money, the monetary part of things can be done by somebody else. So
Mm,
let's let them. Let's invite the rest of society to join us in our mothering, to support us in our mothering by covering whatever costs might be involved.
mhm. Which brings to mind your convention.
Yes.
Tell me about that. You had one that I know of, and the
Yes.
last one, just couldn't happen, but I wanna hear more about that.
Yes. We recognize motherhood as a profession. And similar to how dentists will get together to have a convention and share best practices and network with each other. Lawyers will do it, So why not moms? Why let's go ahead and follow that example of other industries and choose to have a convention where we do the same thing. We network, we connect, we gain skills, we value what we do enough to put time and effort into increasing our job satisfaction.
Mhm. I
Um,
love yeah.
so yes, you mentioned we had one in 2024, and then in 2025 we had a hard time getting funding. We wanted to go into it with a better foundation in terms of the funds involved, and it was just a hard year. But we had a hard time. We did I think a really great job of seeking out, and yet it was hard to get sponsors. So we're looking forward to 2026 and hoping to get sponsors for a convention this year and build partnerships with the community, possibly get some of the expenses taken care of in a variety of methods, maybe not just sponsors, but ideally we would be able to welcome moms to a day of education and rejuvenation and and connecting with other moms. Um,
Mhm.
and if at all possible, make it really inexpensive for the mom. There might be a need to ask moms to buy in, so that they purposely put the time aside and they value what they've paid for. But if we can do it for $40 or less, then that would be ideal.
Yeah, that's tricky because if you do charge someone, they're more likely to value it, but
Right.
then you don't wanna charge too much that they don't buy it.
Exactly.
That is tricky. You
Exactly.
know, when we're talking about, profession, I was a full-time mom, and when my last one left, I was nervous, but I came across the idea of putting my resume together, and I got different opinions. 'Cause I was able to take advantage, because my husband's in the military, of a lot of returning to the workforce for spouses. I got some advice, leave the years of being a full-time mom out of it. And then I got advice, oh no, recruiters like that. They value that. And then I got advice to put numbers on things that you do. So, what does Momivate say about putting the years of full time motherhood on resumes?
Oh, yes, we are all about that. We even have a certification that you can make an effort to conscientiously work through some of those things. We call it the RAISE certification. RAISE is an acronym. We're all about wordplay here at Momivate. And so it's a way to categorize what you have been doing as a mom, that you didn't just sit on the couch and eat bonbons and watch soap operas, Unfortunately, that sometimes is what people think when they realize that you were a full-time mom. So the R in raise is for relationships, and consider all of the effort that you have put into building good relationships, and not just with your children, but with your spouse, with your other mothers, with your in-laws. There's just a lot of relationships involved, and your conscious efforts to make good relationships is very valuable. Yes, consider that from an employer's perspective. A lot of employment is about being able to get along with people. So that is valuable to an employer. The A in raise is for atmosphere. So this has to do with what your household was like in terms of the five senses and a sixth sense, right? Like, what's just the overall feel of your household? And you impacted that, hopefully conscientiously, but potentially it was all subconscious. You
Possible.
you as a mom, a full-time mom, you were thinking about, what do people see when they come into my household? What or for my children who are in my household, what are they hearing? What kinds of touch is happening in our household? Do we have hugs going on and high fives? Um, and there's just a lot embedded in that concept of the atmosphere. And again, employers want that capability in a
Mhm.
lot of cases. It's very valuable. The I in raise is for income and outgo. In my case, I didn't contribute to the income very much, but I still have a huge impact on my family's finances through the outgo. And this is a recognized fact. Like, if you go to marketing school or something, they will tell you to try to make the ads applicable to mothers, because mothers are the financial decision makers. And it's that's an interesting concept there, but it's true, and we can decide how the money is spent, regardless of if we're the ones bringing it in or not. But in both cases, income and outgo, uh, having financial stability can have a huge impact on our homes. And of course, employers, again, are going to really appreciate any capability that you bring that has to do with their finances.
Yes, I do.
The S in the RAISE up acronym is for schedules and systems. Huge. Again, if you can show an employer all that work that you have done over the years of figuring out dentist appointments and carpool and homework management and chores, like, those are the schedules and systems that run a household and can run a business. The E in the RAISE acronym is for energy. And this is outwardly, it's physical things like exercise or eating or sleep habits. But inwardly, that is mental health right there. And that is a huge buzzword among employers these days, is how do we find mentally healthy employees. And in the event that we are working with a mentally ill employee, how do we contribute to their mental health? So that, if you can somehow, and Mama Vate has ways to work that into resume worthy language. And we do intend, once we have all the right things in place as far as volunteers and stuff, we do intend to actively advocate among employers so that when they see the raise certification on a resume, that it makes sense to them and that they value it and that they say, yes, please come bring that deliberate and intentional effort that you put into motherhood and bring it to our company because we will benefit from that.
So our time has come to an end, and I've just so enjoyed talking to you.
Well,
Just
thank
so
you.
enjoyed it. And reviewing all the wonderful things about motherhood, which was my profession for, oh, I don't know how many years. I used to know I could rattle it off, but I don't know. I haven't. I keep forgetting all my numbers. What is unending? What two words can you use to put to motherhood?
Love and joy.
Love and joy. Those are great things to have in your life if you can get them. Thank you very much, Regan Barnes. And look up Momivate. It's a quick search, momivate.org.
Like the word motivate, but with an M in the middle.
So, a little challenge for you today. Show a little mercy for a mom. This is Laura Hanson Brexa with Know It, Live It, conversations with people who live passion on purpose and purpose with passion.